Hello, friends, and welcome to the third episode of The Address, the official stateofgames.com podcast. I'm Pete Lopez, and with me today is David Quigley.
Hello.
Hey, so keep in mind, you can be a part of the show by heading over to twitter.com/TSOGtweets, give us a follow, and send us a question using the hashtag TOGpodcast. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into today's show, and we're talking about the PS1 Classic, which Sony revealed the official lineup this week. And I believe there's 20 titles total. It's coming on December 3rd, and it's going to retail for $100. Now, David, we were talking before we started recording, and you didn't seem that interested in the lineup.
That's a really nice way of putting it. I think this is terrible. I don't think this is going to sell, remotely near what they want it to do. It's not going to do anywhere near even SNES classic numbers. These games are not what I would consider classics at all for the most part. I mean, obviously a few of them are, but the percentage of 20 of these, not very good, and I suspect the masses are going to not exactly be as nostalgic for the PS1 era super low poly count games that graphically don't hold up at all.
Yeah.
I see things on here, like Twisted Metal. Most people, I think, like Twisted Metal 2 better. You got Final Fantasy 7, which of course is the overrated classic that everyone loves. So people like that, but that's been available how many different ways by now anyway.
Right.
You can even get that on PS4 with trophies. So,
Right.
You can buy a $100 box for that. So you can use probably a 3-foot cord with a tiny controller. No. And, the one that jumped out at me, I guess the most, is Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, the original one. So, that's going to be hard to play in 2018. It's not at all like what the games are now. You had to plot your way in and, plan all the different routes people are going to take. I don't know. I know you're more excited than me. Maybe you can try to sway me. You won't be able to, but you can try.
So the thing about the PS1 Classic is, I find it interesting because I didn't grow up playing the PlayStation console. I had one, but I think I just played Tony Hawk mostly on that. So I didn't get introduced into the PlayStation titles until maybe later down the road before it died out and PS2 came out. But there are games that I was introduced to later down the road, like Metal Gear Solid, Mr. Driller, Rayman, Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo for sure. So those are going to be games that I'm going to definitely sink my teeth into. I think games like Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six and Twisted Metal, like you had mentioned previously, they're not going to hold up in 2018, that's for sure. Like, even watching the trailer and seeing Rainbow Six gameplay, I was like, ugh, like that's just ugly, But when you think about it,
All the
it did come
games
out
were
like years ago. Yeah,
It's not even it's in that era of games where after Super Nintendo you had the full 3D revolution, so those games just don't look good. For the time, they were technically impressive, but it's all the really low poly count, and it's just kind of gross looking.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to sell for sure, but I think it's mostly meant for those who grew up playing these kind of video games. I don't remember it myself, but from what I've gathered on Twitter lately since the announcement, like Grand Theft Auto, the original Grand Theft Auto wasn't even a great game.
I disagree with that.
Okay, so maybe it was, but
Like, looking at this list, for me, that would probably be the most entertaining game to go back and play.
yeah, so pick 5 games out of this list if you can that you would be interested in.
Okay, first Grand Theft Auto is probably number 1. Battle Arena Toshinden, I love that on Game Boy. I never played it on PlayStation. I assume, hopefully, it was better on PlayStation. Beyond that, I don't care about fighting games so much anyway, even though that is one. I don't have the time for Final Fantasy VII. I guess I'll say I'll take Rayman for number three. I will never touch Resident Evil with the tank controls.
Hmm.
Um, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, that's a puzzle game with the
Hmm.
fighting, like you do your attacks by doing the puzzle game, right?
Hmm. Yeah, pretty
All
much.
right, so we'll put that on the list for number four, and uh, I guess Siphon Filter, but I think that would probably get boring pretty quick too. I don't think that'll hold up very well.
Mm. I
So,
mean,
so what I want, I guess, quick is just make PS5 backwards compatible and let people throw the discs in and play them. We don't need to have tiny little $100 boxes for every old thing that goes on. You
mm,
know, make people pay 99 cents for every game that they backwards compatible put in or something. You can find a way to make money off these old games without littering up people's living rooms with 1,000 different boxes that have to plug into a TV.
yeah. The sad part is, or the sad thing is that I'm going to buy this. It's going to cost $100, but I think I'm going to play it for like a day or two, and it's going to sit just like my NES Classic and my SNES Classic. Because I was really hyped for the NES Classic and SNES Classic before it came out, and then I ended up getting one, and I was like, oh wait, I have all these on Virtual Console, and I don't play them. Nintendo got me for sure, but I mean, I like the novelty of it. It's nice to have like a little mini system, but I'm staring at it right now, and it's just collecting dust. So I'm hoping that I get more mileage out of the PS1 Classic, just because I haven't really finished the original Metal Gear Solid. I don't think I played the original Resident Evil.
Keep it that way.
Uh, well, I was kind of disappointed they didn't bring two instead of the original
Yeah, I
Resident
mean, I
Evil.
looked at this list. The people, my friends I play games with online are mostly like longtime PlayStation people. So my first PlayStation was 3, and that was pretty late in the life cycle.
Mm,
Uh, so they're really coming from a PlayStation background, and they are also not excited for this list.
wow.
So my thought was maybe they're hoping they had enough to do this, and they could do a second version of it with different games. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if there is enough. My big thought is, why didn't you do a PS2 Classic first?
Mm,
Like, because I feel like there's way more games they could pull from PS2, and it was a much better system, much more well received. The games look nicer. I don't know why you do I get it other than it's the first one, but other than that, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Just like the N64 Classic that I'm sure is coming,
right.
that's going to be not as popular as the two before that.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be really hard to get, I think, a PS2 Classic out if the PS1 Classic sales are really bad.
Exactly.
And I
That's why I
think,
flip it. I would have started with the two and made your money, and then you could
mm,
do this one.
yeah, but it wouldn't make sense going backwards though. So they're really taking a leap of faith releasing the first platform
I don't know if
first.
it's a leap of faith so much as a leap of copying Nintendo.
Well,
They're just chasing after Nintendo's money-making idea.
yeah, but I guess the point I was trying to make is that like with this lineup, it's going to like I said, it's going to be really hard to get. I don't
Yeah.
know if the sales are going to be any good for this one here.
Right. It's not, it doesn't have much appeal unless this game of 20 you have really nostalgic memories for.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like the NES Classic and the SNES Classic. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I think it's mostly because it's 2D games that are easier to pick up and play for random people. I just don't see any way that people who didn't grow up on these specific 20 games will be excited about it.
Yeah. So like let's say a PS2 classic came out. What are like three titles you'd like to be on that? Like for sure games.
I couldn't even answer that. I mean, I never had a
Mm,
PS2. I just know, I mean, the sales for PS2 through the roof, you know.
yeah.
So most of what I played on PS2 would have been sports games, I
Mm,
guess.
ew.
But you see, I mean, you can, and I'm kind of surprised there isn't one on this. I mean, you got Cool Borders, but there's not like a classic Madden or anything like
Oh
that,
no.
you know.
You're not gonna get one. Ooh, Blitz would have been cool if they
Wasn't
brought.
there? Didn't the SNES Classic have a sports game on it? An EA game? I thought it did, maybe not.
I don't, not
Oh, at
that I
any
can
rate,
recall.
if PS2, I think of like the firework game that launched with it.
Hmm.
Uh, what do you got?
Like I
Crash
said, well,
Team Racing.
for me on a PS2 Classic, it would mostly be Konami games like Dance Dance Revolution. Um,
There's no way that can be done though.
I know. A lot of people didn't like the Bouncer. I think it was called the Bouncer. That one wasn't too bad on PS2. Um, that's all I really got. And then, I mean, obviously Metal Gear 2 and
Right. I mean,
3.
I just don't have nostalgic memories for anything PS2 and older, and so for me, it's not really a big deal. I'd be way more interested in 64 Classic, even though I don't think those games usually will hold up at all either.
No.
But I feel like I could easily put a list of 20 games together in 64 that'll blow this PS1 one away.
All right. Well, at least we have something to look forward to next week then on the show. Maybe if you can bring that list to the party.
Sure.
So yeah, that's pretty much what we got on the PS1 Classic. If you guys have any thoughts on the PS1 Classic, remember you can hit us up on Twitter. And now, David, you've been playing some Red Dead Redemption 2, and that video game has been getting a lot of hype online, and a lot of people are talking about it. What are your basic thoughts on the game? I know you have an impressions
Sure.
video at the end of this show.
Yeah, so we'll dive into the little kind of mini review impressions afterwards, but the basic takeaway is it's great. It's amazing when it's amazing, and it's kind of frustrating when it's frustrating. So the basically the game parts of the game, when it remembers it's a video game, it's like all time great, and then it'll jump between that and Cowboy Simulator 2018, and that's not nearly as fun. I mean, I'm sure I said this in the impressions, but I feel like a lot of times they looked at a gameplay mechanic and said, how can we make this more realistic without thinking about, is this still fun? And, I'm not here to say video games must be fun, yeah, because obviously people can tell serious stories that are grim and it's not really fun, but you still want to play it. What I don't want to do is sit at a campfire and press a button to say cook another, and then you have to wait for him to pull another piece of meat out of the bags, and then he holds it over the fire, and then you have to press and hold a button to cook it. And then it says, do you want to eat this or stow? And you have to press stow, and then you press the button to cook another. You can't, there's no batch crafting. There's just animations for everything that are unskippable that you'll be doing constantly. So I feel like this game is probably going to easily take 100 plus hours to complete. And I think in that time, the amount of time that will be wasted by animations that I want to skip will probably be in at least 5 of those hours, if not double digits. There's just so much that kind of, and it's not really padding it because, it's making the world more immersive, but it's just not fun. There's parts that aren't fun, but then the parts that are just so good that you don't care and you just keep going back.
Wow. That really says a lot about the game in multiple
Um,
regards.
sure, and like I was joking in our Slack. I said, this playing it, it feels like it's the greatest 4 out of 5 game ever made. So by that I mean, the good parts are so good, but there's way too much that I don't like to give it a 5 out of 5 at this point. So I say it's brilliant, technically impressive. The graphics are insane for any game, especially when you consider it's an open world and how big it is. Everywhere you go, it just looks great. It's just so technically impressive. It's probably the best game of the year technically, but not my favorite game of the year. So,
Wow.
it's kind of a weird situation like that. So I don't feel like it will go down as beloved as like Grand Theft Auto 5, which sold 1 billion copies and everybody generally loves it. I think this one's quite a bit more divisive, but it's undeniably great.
Well, I think one of the things that resonated with people when it came to Grand Theft Auto 5 is that it had a large community. Do you see Red Dead 2 having a large community, or do you think it will gather one eventually through time?
Well, I mean, Red Dead Online's supposed to launch in November, so I guess that'll be the test, right? Is once the because right now there's no online functionality, so the community is just basically people going on Reddit and posting gifs of the weird and funny stuff that they saw in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's a lot of that going on right now because we're only a week away from the release. So, I mean, it made what? Do you remember the number? Wasn't it like 750 million over
Oh,
the
I don't know.
weekend?
Yeah,
In
I
terms
thought the
of
numbers were
sales?
pretty good though. I thought I seen something on Twitter about
Yeah,
it.
it was the second biggest 3-day opening ever behind Grand Theft Auto 5. So they're doing fine in terms of sales. I'm excited to try out the online part and see how that goes.
Yeah.
But my other concern is like, don't want people with their spoilers out there screaming in the microphone because I just finished chapter 2 last night.
Oh, and how many chapters are in the game?
I don't know, but I feel like probably at least 6 or 7. I don't. I probably played it at least 20 plus hours.
God, that's
You know,
insane.
of course, I'm not just ramming through the story missions either. I'm trying to do everything that pops up as it pops up in my path. So I'm not rushing it, but it just feels enormous.
Yeah. Well, right on, man. I look forward to checking out your impressions. And the game is getting great reviews. Like IGN gave it a 10, The Guardian gave it a 5 out of 5, Game Informer gave it a 10. So it's apparently a great game. I just
Yep.
haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, I mean, if we were on a 10-point scale, I would definitely feel it's more of a 9 out of 10. But I do like our 5-point scale, and like I say, as of now, it feels like an amazing 4 out of 5.
So basically, being able to skip all the little things that you have to sit through, would that push it to a 10?
Yeah, because there's not like the other big thing, I guess, it's not big. All of my things are small things, but there's enough of them that it's annoying.
It
But
adds up.
yeah, the controls can be a little clunky at times where like it's hard to pick up a thing that you want because you have to be standing in the right spot and facing the right way, and sometimes looking at it, there's just some clunky decisions. But it's not like a glitch fest or anything that, I think if you go online, you can see it's an open world. I think the glitches are probably totally in line with what you would expect from any open world game because it's
Hmm.
just so big, weird stuff happens. I've had the thing freeze. Like I went into the gun shop once and I held the button down to look at the book. So then he goes and does an animation to open up the catalog, and then that's how you buy stuff.
Hmm.
I hold on the button. He walks up to the counter, but he doesn't actually take the book and open it. And then no more button prompts worked, and I was stuck. So I had to force close the game and relaunch it. So nothing crazy's happened. That's the worst thing that's happened. So
And you're playing on a 4K
I'm
TV
playing
with
on
PS Pro.
PS4. Yeah, PS4 Pro on an OLED. Looks great, even though the HDR is fake.
Mm.
It has been determined that they just kind of make it brighter, which isn't really what HDR is. But that's not a discussion for this because that's kind of really technical and boring. But still, it looks great anyway, so it doesn't really matter that it's fake.
Right on. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and push right to that impressions audio. And remember, keep in mind, you can be a part of the show by heading over to twitter.com/TSOG tweets. Just give us a follow and send us any questions or comments that you might have on the show. So for everyone at thestateofgames.com, this is going to do it for the third episode of The Address. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
You're probably aware that Red Dead Redemption 2 has released to the masses, and 1 week later I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. I'm not even finished with the second chapter, allowing myself to be distracted by side missions and random events as they occur. But this is the story of Arthur, a member of the Vanderlyn gang that John was sent to hunt down in Red Dead Redemption. Every bit of the story has been enthralling and keeps me wanting to go back for more, even when I get frustrated with some questionable mechanics and clumsy controls. Red Dead is most enjoyable when it's not trying to be Cowboy Simulator 2018, even though when it gets laborious, you still can't deny the technical excellence Rockstar has created. You're quickly given free reign of a massive world map, one that you'd be hard-pressed to get from end to end on a horse in 20 minutes. And most of those places you travel in between flesh out the world just a little bit more. From sleepy farm towns to more populous cities, and the long winding roads in between, there's always something going on to pull your focus away from just barreling through the game's main missions. When the game dives more headlong into the plotting cowboy simulation, it makes me desperate to find the skip button that doesn't exist. I don't need to sit through a skinning animation every kill. I don't want to wait for other players to finish their hands in blackjack after I've already won or lost. It'd be nice if there was some amount of path fighting for your horse so you don't smash into trees when you're trying to hunt. I don't care to be taking the time to clean guns so they work better. I don't like having to cook food one item at a time, with each item requiring a several second long button hold to finish it. Everything I just mentioned really does make for a more immersive time, but I feel that too often Rockstar chose to make the game realistic over fun. But that's not to say the game isn't fun. Every mission I've seen so far has been nothing short of brilliant. They're well written and always pushing the story forward, even when sometimes they don't seem to be going anywhere important. Shootouts are inevitable and a blast to play through, and using the Deadeye mechanic to slow down time never gets old. The game probably controls best on a horse, and you'll be spending a lot of time with any number of horses that you decide to buy, or just, tame out in the wild. One of my other favorite things to do is track down those perfect condition animal pelts so I can keep crafting new gear and new upgrades for my camp. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a gigantic game. I'm not sure I'll finish it this calendar year. For my taste, it's actually too big, but there's no doubt I'm getting my money's worth. I'm looking forward to see how the story unfolds, but won't stop taking in the small interactions that make everything feel more alive. I have quite a few smaller issues that do continue to bother me, but Red Dead Redemption 2 is easily a contender for the most technically impressive game ever made, even if it's not my favorite game I've played this year. Red Dead Redemption 2 is available now for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I'll have a full review you can check out later. Be sure to go back to thestateofgames.com.